let's go outside. I love the outdoors. Despite typically being an exemplar of the basement-dwelling ragamuffin lifestyle, I greatly enjoy getting out and about and traipsing through some thick Canadian brush. Well, when I can be bothered at least, my schedule is always jam-packed full of important plots and appointments. Anyway, it's good to get away from the stresses of civilized life. Sure, technology is fine and all, what with Netflix, Doritos, and fleshlights and such, but it's good for the soul to get a little wet, sweaty, muddy, and dirty, to immerse yourself in the elements, to get back in touch with your animal roots. And heavy metal is much the same way. It's about becoming a little more animalistic. Why? Because it's fun, but mostly because it's cathartic. I think Samuel Johnson said it best. He who makes a beast out of himself takes away the pain of being a man. In other words, go crazy and raise a little hell, because it's good for you. In spite of all the stuff that civilization has given us, it also kind of sucks. There's rules, there's laws, there's manners, there's a whole bunch of stuff that prevents you from cutting loose and having a good time. And that ain't good for the mind, the soul, or the body. So generally it's a good idea to, every now and again, get in touch with your inner beast. And it doesn't matter how you do it, be it a long hike through the woods or listening to heavy metal. And today, I'm going to talk about a band with a similarly beastly attitude, a band so monstrously metal that listening to them for 10 seconds will cause mutton chops to grow on your face. The facial hair, of course, not the meat. That's just silly. That would take 20 seconds. A band with the unassuming name of Svölk. Svölk is a flannel-clad lumberjack smelling of whiskey and wood chips, legs covered in farmland fecal matter, arms covered in hair, mud, and sick tattoos. One grubby fist wrapped around a bottle of Jack Daniels, the other around an axe. No, the other axe. There you go, egghead, now you're getting it. Svölk plays a thick-ass brand of stoner metal that can only have come from an overgrown primeval wilderness, where trees speak the words of men and where baby Sasquatches frolic and play and kill the shit out of everything. They play an ass-kicking amalgam of stoner doom and southern rock that they call bear metal. Bear metal? Ah, cripes. Metalheads need another subgenre like we need another DUI. And even then, I'm not exactly sure why it's called bear metal. My initial guess was that it was called that because maybe bears use Svölk to serenade chicks, much in the same way humans use Peter Gabriel. But regardless, it sounds like something that would be called bear metal. Don't try to run, I will hunt you down. Oh hell yeah, it does. Thick, fuzzy, sludgy-ass bass, crushing guitars, and slick vocals. My word, it's like heavy metal honey. Mwah! Svölk kicks ass. Hell, apparently that's what Svölk means, to kick ass. Or at least it does in Trysil, the Norwegian backwoods where the band was founded. Ah, fucking Norway. Denmark's oily mountainous brother, consumed with a glorious boreal beauty. Love it. Anywho, I'm wandering off topic. The band was founded in 2005 and mauled the local scene with a dangerous demo called Beast Unleashed. Four years later, in 2009, Svölk would independently release a full-fledged self-titled album. Then, in 2011, they remade it for international release with the name Svölk after they got signed to Napalm Records. We meet again. I see you have a finger in this pie as well, you crafty minx. Regardless, Napalm did what Napalm does best and spread the fire everywhere. You can find this sucker anywhere, even in places you would never expect. I managed to find my copy of Svölk at HMV of all places, a store that has 2 shelves dedicated to metal and 24 dedicated to Katy Perry. Needless to say, it's not a store I expect to have this sort of thing in stock, but hey, diamond in the rough. Here's another track for you. Hello, Miss Alcohol. Oh yeah, fun fact about these guys, they love to drink. Every interview I find with them has at least 3 mentions of beer. Seriously, look up a couple and take a shot every time Svölk mentions an alcoholic beverage. After 3 or 4 interviews, your breath will be so flammable that it can be used as an alternative fuel. But I suppose it's only natural. I mean, come on. The beer, the flannel, the mustaches. It ain't that hard to figure out, folks. These guys are Nordic rednecks. When it comes to the Arctic Circle, the more north you go, the more south it gets. Now, typically any combination of Nordic and redneck is bound to conjure up some really terrible images, but thankfully, this kind of Nordic redneck is docile, even-tempered, and not scared half to death by brown people and healthcare systems that actually work. They're basically just rugged beer-drinking manly men who eat pine trees and shit dinette sets. I forgot to mention this earlier when I reviewed Raubtier, who are a really good example of this. Those guys are huge rednecks. To make it as clear as possible, they started a countryside band.
Just give me shotguns, trucks, and cattle, horses, whiskey, and rifle.
Surprisingly dope. Check them out. Anyway, this Nordic redneck thing is pretty surreal to most people, especially when you consider that the typical Scandinavian is a tall, blonde ditz with good manners and a goofy accent. But then you move further north and you start finding hairy, stinky, modern-day Vikings. Apparently being a redneck is a form of atavism, a reversion to old ancestral behavior. You know, Nordic rednecks become Vikings, American rednecks become racists, British rednecks become imperialists, French rednecks actually win fights, and Canadian rednecks just sit on their sofas watching the playoffs and getting mad at the Chicago Blackhawks. Oh! Fucking Blackhawks! What? I'm not a redneck. Yes, you are, me. You drink like a fish, you smell like a pine, you shout at the refs, the only sport you play is beer pong, and you go into a homicidal rage whenever you hear Chelsea Dagger. Yeah, fair enough. I do hate Chelsea Dagger. Yeah, a little bit of a segue here, but most metalheads do have a pinch of redneck in them. Just a pinch, and in a good way, of course. I think Jeff Foxworthy said it best.
For the record, my definition of redneck, it is a glorious absence of sophistication. That's all it is.
Yeah, I think we can all agree with that a little bit. We metalheads are fairly rough and tumble in our general approach to things. We're not the most debonair or etiquette-minded of people. We're pretty vulgar. And, coming back to Svölk, that is what they put into their music. A certain consistency and toughness. A raw redneck flavor. Ooh-wee, there ain't no better way to tell those city boys to suck it than with this here rock and roll, I tell you what. Yuck. If I had to describe them in as few words as possible, I'd probably say The Sword, but heavier. Heavier not only musically, but lyrically. Their lyrics are pretty morose, as if song titles like Sweet Agony, 12 Times the Pain, End of Days, and Time for the Dying weren't already dead giveaways. Man, bear metal is harsh. Jesus, this is what bears go through? Man, bears need more hugs, man. Bears need more hugs. Okay, the truth about the bear metal name is that it started as a joke. They got bored with questions involving their genre, so they made it up. Plus, you know, they had a sick-ass logo with a bear in it, so there you go. Now, I've read reviewers who say they sound like Pantera or Sabbath or old Metallica, Old Maiden, stuff like that. But for all these trifles about genre classification, I never really had a problem figuring out what they sounded like. They just sound like stoner metal to me. I hear bits and pieces that come from other genres, but it still doesn't sound too far removed from other stoner acts like Red Fang, Caius, Sleep, or, like I mentioned before, The Sword. Svölk is darker sounding, but otherwise their sound is fairly traditional, I think. I don't have a problem with that, of course, it's just that they promised a combination of stoner doom and southern rock, and I expected something a lot more different. It's probably just me, and I do hear little bits and pieces of it, but I mostly just hear stoner metal. It kind of overpowers the other influences, I think. I would like to hear a more pronounced southern rock influence. A good example of what I'm talking about is Overload. want a couple more songs that sound like that. Something with a little more blues to it, because, hey, their lyrics are melancholy enough, and besides, it will give them more to draw upon musically, so they can avoid falling into a slump of producing similar sounding songs. A little bit of deja vu there. Gotta work to avoid that. But, regardless, Svölk kicks ass. Or rather, Svölk swelks. No, that doesn't sound right. Svölk fucking rocks! They may not be as unique as I would like them to be, but that doesn't change the fact that Svölk still rocks my balls off with some rough and rowdy redneck rock and roll. And these wild and woolly woodsmen will continue to kick ass and further refine their ass-kicking methods until bare metal transcends music and becomes a martial art. So pick up a copy of Svölk-em-all, crank up the speakers, and unleash the beast. I'm Happy Viking, and you've just been served your recommended dosage of heavy metal. Rock on and drink responsibly. Now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna go hunting for the most delicious game of all, the elusive Yeti. Toodles!